Welcome to the SaaS Revolution Show, a podcast by SaaStock. Here we interview SaaS founders from around the world who've been there and done that, as they share the ins and outs of how they built their businesses, their operations, their path to securing investment, and more. Our mission with the podcast is to help you, the founder, learn how to scale your SaaS, maintain your well-being, and navigate the complexities of this ever-changing industry. I'm your host, Alex Duma, and together we'll explore the good, the bad, and the ugly in the journey to SaaS success.
We have the amazing Rob Liddiard here, and I love his LinkedIn intro of himself. Experienced B2B SaaS founder, reformed M&A lawyer, and a professional EOS implementer. Love the conciseness of it. If you can write up mine, that would be great. But aside from that, Rob, welcome to the floor is yours. So I'll let you do your thing.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you, and great to have met a few of you at events previously, actually, and hopefully I'll get to meet more of you in person in Dublin if everybody can make it. If you're happy, in order to make sure you get the most out of this session, I'd love to, won't do extensive intros because now I'm hopefully becoming part of this community. We'll get to spend more time together in the future, but it'd be awesome to know roughly the stages you're at, because that will inform the sort of targets. I know there's quite a wide spread in SaaStock. What I'd just love to know real quick, I'll go around the cameras and then I'll introduce myself and my background as to how EOS came into my life. I'd love to know roughly the kind of, if you have a subscription business, roughly the revenue you're at, whether it's pre-revenue or pre-IPO, it's all good. Doesn't matter. It's just targets will be different clearly. So revenue level, how many employees are you responsible for? Because again, delivering targets through people is different when it's through managers of managers of managers, right? So revenue, employees. Are you funded or bootstrapped? Because of course, if you're funded, you typically will set targets based on the promises you made to investors. So that's helpful to know what the split between funded and bootstrapped is. And then finally, are you running on EOS already or not? If you are, then that will just mean I can assume some prior knowledge. If you're not, that's all good. I'll still whiz through so that I don't lose those that are already familiar with the core concept. So revenue, number of employees, funded or bootstrapped. Are you running on EOS? Right, if I just call around the screen, if that's okay. Amber.
Yeah, so we just crossed 6 million ARR. Then bootstrapped, we have around 120 right now.
Right. Are you running on EOS, Amber?
So, sorry?
Are you running the company on EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System?
No, not now.
Brilliant. Okay, cool. That's really helpful. Hey, Bridget, how about you?
So we're about 5 million ARR dollars. I'm responsible for about 30 people. Technically, we have 22 employees, but we have an extended team. And we introduced the traction book. That's what we're talking about here, isn't it? Yeah. So I was just I got confused with EOS and EOR. So whatever it is, we are doing that and have been since last June. So I think that we are having our planning meeting on Monday for our next quarter to start on Tuesday.
Nice, love it. And are you funded?
And we're bootstrapped. We're bootstrapped.
Awesome. Fab. Justas.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah, we're 5 mil ARR. I think about 50 employees. Never learned to count them, but yeah, 50 I guess. We're funded, Series A, and we're not running on EOS.
Not on EOS. Brilliant. Okay. Awesome. Hey, Simon, good to see you. You all right to pipe in from the car?
Yeah, good to see you, Rob. So we're very early stage. We just launched paid plans earlier this year. Still hunting down the 100K ARR target. Small team, even smaller now that we were funded, and we've spent all of that money. So now we're kind of bootstrapping. So now I'm embracing the bootstrapping mindset and actually enjoying it. It fits me a bit better. I don't like to splash the cash.
No,
so there's about six of us at the moment.
Brilliant. Yeah. And are you half run on an EOS, thinking about it?
Yeah, I started reading the book. I just figuring out what's the right level for us because we're small. But yeah, I've got to come along.
Hey Art, nice to meet you. We're just doing, like, just for some quick context, revenue, employees, funded or bootstrapped, running on EOS or not.
Yeah, 2.5 million ARR, about 22 employees, including a team of 13 offshore Vietnam. Bootstrapped 100% and not using EOS yet.
Awesome. Super helpful. We've got a great mix. Dear Tier.
Yeah, hey, I'm not in software anymore, so we're doing a marketplace, and the marketplace is doing a 2.5 million turnover. We're 15 people, and we looked into some concepts of the enterprise operating system. So especially the right person on the right seat is very, very interesting. But so far we didn't implement the rest of the whole EOS yet.
Nice. And you funded or bootstrapped?
Bootstrapped.
Bootstrapped. Awesome. Cheers. Appreciate that. Michael.
Hi, everybody. Sorry for being late. I'm the founder of Walls.io. We are a MarTech helping marketers utilizing user-generated content. We are bootstrapped, 3 million ARR at the head count of 21, and not on EOS yet, but interested, of course. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
Awesome. That's helpful.
Looking forward.
Yeah, Igor.
Hey guys, good to see you all. Yeah, the company is Newcom. We do calling software for businesses, and we own 4 million ARR, about 40 people, bootstrapped.
Awesome. Are you on EOS or not?
No.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks for that, gang. So,
yeah, sorry, a correction on my side. I said around 120 people, but it's actually 50. I gave you the ARR of Cookie, yes, but we have a couple of other products. So I gave you the number of total people that we have. That is 120. For Cookie, yes, it's kind of 50.
Got it. All right. That's awesome. Thanks. Is there anyone that I've missed out that wants to give some context?
Henry.
Hey,
yeah, I'm on the move. Sorry, I cannot have camera on all the time, but yeah, we are at 600K ARR. Have raised a small pre-seed round and currently raising like a seed round also. Like we have 200% growth this year. So team of 7 and just implementing EOS.
Fab. Awesome. Thanks for that. That's great. Great context. I think that's everyone then. So I founded a software business called Yapster in 2015. It was acquired at the end of 2022. It was like a modest outcome. It was a bit better than an acqui-hire. It wasn't an IPO. So like it was a real struggle for a lot of it. It was like of the 8 years I was running it, I would say 5 of the years were pretty hard, like really pretty intense. We got to about 100,000 paid users. So think of it like it was a secure mobile messaging service for the frontline economy. So think like Slack, but for retail, hospitality, distribution. I'm a lawyer by background. I didn't enjoy it, so don't hold it against me. The idea originally for the business called Yapster was I thought that when the data protection laws changed in Europe, big employers would have to buy Slack or Teams licenses for the like 85% of their employees that weren't currently on Office 365 to avoid data protection liability. And that regulatory tailwind never came, right? So I assumed that there would be a regulatory tailwind that would force companies to purchase in this new category of software that we founded. And that tailwind never came. And so it just meant that like Yapster it never had any market pull. It was a real like nice to have product selling into a need to have economy. I'd never run a business before, like, so being a CEO didn't come particularly naturally to me. And so, which is why I found it so rough for the first 5 years. You can be a rookie CEO, not with any great natural talent for it, if you find product market fit early. If you don't, then like lack of operating skills can be a real pain in the arse, as hopefully not too many of you know. Someone gave me the book Traction that Bridget alluded to that introduces the Entrepreneurial Operating System in 2020. and like it changed my life basically. It even though I had to take a lot of cost out of Yapster to survive, the business started growing and became like stable enough to be acquirable. And so I made enough money to not need a real job, but not so much that I'm sort of pieced out on a beach. And so what I do now is I teach EOS part-time to other founders that are interested in, you know, just getting more of what they want from the business. I'm only 41, so I expect I will operate again at some time in the future. I'll probably look to practice acquisition entrepreneurship, i.e. buying an existing SaaS or services business rather than starting something from day one again. So that's me. Like, I'm definitely not a guru or an advisor. Almost all of you on this call have built better businesses than I did. But like sports coaches, you know, a lot of the most successful sports coaches were not very good players. It turns out you just learn more in the struggle. So I'm really passionate about EOS, and I like to think I've developed some mastery of the tools because it was the only way to keep my business alive for like those sort of hard years in the middle. So hopefully that gives some context to you as to you know what I do and why I do EOS. Now, quite a few of you are EOS aware, at least, so I won't spend too much time sort of going into it. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very quickly remind you of the 6 components in the EOS model, right? Because in EOS, the whole model is predicated upon this idea that whether you're very, very successful, like, you know, those of you in the mid millions now looking at hitting your 10 million and beyond, or if you're struggling to get that initial traction like I did back in the day, what makes running an entrepreneurial company overwhelming is the simultaneous triaging of issues. The issues never go away, as you know. And so what EOS teaches us is if you can, and I know Sid will have showed you this, so don't worry, I'm not going to rehash what you've already got from Sid. I'll just do this very briefly. If you can just strengthen 6 key components, all of those 150 or so different issues that you're wrestling with tend to dissolve because they're typically just symptoms of a handful of underlying dysfunctions, all right? So really quickly around the model for the uninitiated, and then we'll get into target setting and hitting. So the 6 components are vision. So where's your organization going and how are you actually going to get there? This is where the target setting piece comes in. But the second key component is the people component. I think it was Dieter that said he's interested in this idea of right people, right seats, right? It's very difficult to deliver a vision, i.e. hit targets, if you don't have the right people on the bus. So that's the second key component. The third key component is the data component. So this is all about making decisions on facts and figures and objective information, not making your decisions based on ego and feelings. So again, that drives target setting in, firstly, having an absolute pulse on our business in terms of numbers, not just us as founders, but also our key lieutenants, our leadership team. So our finance person should understand key drivers of go-to-market. Our go-to-market person should understand the key drivers of financial health, right? That's what the data component means. We're financially, numerically literate as an organization in pursuit of our vision. So those are the first 3 components. The fourth key component, which we're going to get into on the second half of this workshop, is the issues component. So how do we get problems that are standing between us and the delivery of our vision, i.e. hitting our targets? How do we get that out of our head, out of that knot in our stomach, and into a place where our people can start to self-diagnose and solve issues so they can remove the barriers to making our vision come true? Fifth key component is the process component. So how do we do things the right and best way every time so that our company delivers predictable outcomes? When we pull a lever as an executive, the expected thing happens rather than pulling a lever and nothing happens, or the wrong or unintended thing happens. And then the 6th key component is the traction component. So this is underneath vision for a reason. This is about bringing the vision down to the ground day to day. It's the habits, the meetings that we have. I think Bridget referred earlier to the fact they're about to do their quarterly session. Hopefully some of you are running like weekly leadership team meetings with your people where you look at your numbers on your scorecard, your quarterly initiatives, and basically you keep a pulse on the fact that you're on pace to deliver your vision, which again is really your target. So you're on pace to hit targets. So those are the 6 components of the EOS model. EOS obviously stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So that's all there is to it. Okay, so in the conversation we're going to have today, we're going to be talking about issues and the 6 components and working out like what are the primary failure modes that happen in entrepreneurial businesses that cause us to set bad targets and miss good or bad targets, right? And my strong belief is that if you can strengthen these 6 components and then exercise some honesty with yourself and rigor, you won't have any problem hitting targets going forward. So what I would really appreciate, we've got 40 minutes for the bulk of the session now. We've kind of set the scene, who's on the call, what it is we're trying to strengthen on. I would love to just call out some issues that typically stand between an organization and delivery of its targets. So what I just love you to think about is expressed in the language of vision. Where are we going? How are we going to get there? People, who are the people I need to hit my targets? Data, what are the key numbers that indicate we're on pace for our targets? Issues, how good are we at removing obstacles from hitting our targets? Process, can I actually explain how my company runs, top to bottom, side to side? And then traction, do we have high quality encounters, physical encounters like weekly, quarterly with the team? Let's have a think about what are the primary issues that pop up in each of those 6 components that typically stop us executing our targets. So just have a ponder for that. If you're feeling shy or bored, I'll call out some issues myself and we'll get them up on the board. And so then when we do some group issue solving on the back half of the call, we'll have a list to go through. But it will be more interesting if you throw up some issues on the board that either you're experiencing in your business or you know others are experiencing them, so we can kind of solve them in a more meaningful way. Okay, so just think about that. That's coming in about 5 minutes. Right, so the only slide I'm going to show you is this one, which is a reminder of, can you see this vision traction organizer document? Yeah, like, you see that on the screen?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, so vision, 100% strong in the vision component in a company running on EOS is defined as you and your key lieutenants, so your leadership team initially. If I put you all in separate interrogation rooms and ask you
Sorry, Rob, this is just a technical thing. I think you're sharing your screen in presenter mode. Is it possible you could just share as the...
Yeah,
seeing we don't need to see everything else. We just need to see
yeah, of course. No, thank you for that. Is that better?
Way
just
better.
just the one screen would be great.
Right, hold on.
You can make it full screen, like share presentation on that slide.
Yeah, I don't know why that then... Can I turn it off of presenter mode? Swap displays.
Just click on the swap
perfect.
display.
That's
Yeah, that
perfect.
one.
We got it.
Perfect.
No.
Thank you.
Bridget, I love you for speaking up rather
Continue.
than suffering silence. Thank you so much. Right, okay. I'm not going to teach you the VTO because half of you already know this, but I just want you to look at question number 3. What's your 10-year target, right? So I know those of you that are investor funded or bootstrapped and exhausted, you may plan selling your business before 10 years. In an EOS company, we're trying to create enduring value for the company, which is independent from your value as the owner. Okay, so ideally, we want to set a North Star for the organization as to where this company is going, whether we still work there and own it or not. So that's the first part of target setting. Yeah. So hopefully some of you will have come onto the call thinking about what your 10-year target is. Then if you look on the right-hand side of that VTO, I'm not going to talk about values and focus and marketing strategy because I think you've already done that in another session. You've got your 3-year picture. So what we do here in an EOS company is we ask ourselves, where do you need to be in 3 short years from today? So 25th of September, 2027, when you close your eyes, and if every member of your leadership team closes their eyes, where do you need to be for me not to call bullshit on your 10-year target? And this is the bit that can still be quite visionary, okay? Like, so if you're trying to sell the dream to investors and you're not quite sure how you're going to get there yet, you can be really outrageous in the 10-year and you can be fairly outrageous in the 3-year. There just needs to be a plausible link between the 3-year being ambitious enough to allow the 10-year to be real, remembering that you can rely on the magic of compounding and the great J curve, where it's always going to be brilliant tomorrow. But with just the 3-year, the specific role of it is to give us an interim credible milestone as to where we need to be for the 10-year to come true. Revenue, profit, measurables. If you've tapped out an existing niche in a single product, do you need to bring a second product to market? new geographies and so on. Okay, so the test there is, can you and your leadership team close your eyes, go into separate interrogation rooms, and if I ask you what the 3-year picture is, will they say the same words? The second side of the business plan, the VTO, you've got your 1-year goal. So now this is different, right? If the 3-year picture can be inspiring, a little bit scary, and the 10-year can be outright delusional, the 1 year is very different. The 1 year is all about what's the absolute minimum we have to hit in order to be able to deliver our 3-year, but the 1 year is no longer wishful thinking, right? So ideally, we should actually roughly know, what do we need to get done in periods of 90 days? That's where we get into the rocks, in order that if we get the rocks done, the 1 year takes care of itself, and then we're on pace. We're set up really nicely going into our next set of 1-year goals to deliver our 3-year picture, and in turn make our 10-year vision or a 10-year target come true, right? So you've got 10-year target, 3-year picture. Those two are on the vision side because they're very visionary. 1-year goals, that's on the traction side because we're not going to miss our 1-year goals. And our rocks are 4 sets of 90-day strategic initiatives that, if we roll them up, equal delivery of the 1-year goal. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. And so the first issue, Bridget, call out if I'm doing something wrong. Can you read that roughly? Issues. Yeah, vaguely?
Yeah.
Awesome, right? So the first issue, if we look at the 6 components that comes up, is silly 1-year goals. So are there any other issues relating to the vision component that anyone wants to call out? Doesn't matter if you don't, because I'm going to keep moving through the components, right? Like any other primary failure modes. Like I told you, I'm just a teacher of EOS and a facilitator. I'm not a business guru. I don't know anything that you don't know about running a SaaS company. I just know more about the implementation of the Entrepreneurial Operating System. Happy with that? The other one I would suggest, if no one else has a suggestion, although Bridget, were you about to raise a hand?
I was going to say things like lack of expertise in your team. Like you know what you want to do, but you haven't got the right people. So it's the right people problem.
I love it. So
you haven't got enough people.
Okay, so wrong people.
And just to get, I mean, half the people I spoke to here know this because I've talked to them about it in the sanctity of the SFM group. But I implemented EOS because I had a business problem, but I had a people problem as well. And I just had to spend a year solving the people problem first, and then implement EOS, and then start to solve the business problem.
Love it. Yeah, totally agree, right? So we've gone to the second component. So we've got silly 1-year goals, wrong people. I'm actually going to number these because we can decide what order we want to solve them in. 2, 3. 4 is investor-driven targets, right? So like we've had to commit a certain amount of like a long-term picture in order to unlock investor support. In my business, I raised about 4 million. My plan got sort of, I increasingly presented my 1-year goals as I presented my 3-year picture as my 1-year goals in order to unlock capital. Felt good for about 5 minutes and then felt shit for another 18 months, right? So I'm going to write investor promises. Bridget, you called out a couple of issues relating to the people component. Data component, I'm going to suggest an issue. So the issue is we don't actually know the leading metrics, so the input metrics that deliver the expected output metric. Does that make sense to everyone, right? So like we call it screaming at the scoreboard. So you're really frustrated the sales team are not delivering the ARR, but you're not actually tracking the number of meetings that they're doing or qualified meetings, which are ultimately what's going to drive that lagging metric. Does that make sense? I see a couple of nods there. Yeah, so I'm going to write 5 leading metrics. Fab. So we've gone through vision, people, data. We're either not looking at the leading metrics or we've got the wrong leading metrics. Then you've got the issues component. Okay, so the primary issue there, again, that I'll call out unless anyone's got any specific issues with issues, is we're not actually solving the most important issues that are standing between us and the delivery of our 1-year goal. Like, so when we do our meetings, if we're doing our meetings, come to that in a minute, we're spending a lot of time talking about stuff that feels really important to the team and maybe even feels really important to us, but isn't actually the thing that's standing between us and delivery of the target. Does that make sense? Has anyone experienced that? Sometimes? So those of you that are running on EOS, we'll talk about IDSing probably in the second half of this call. Okay, so I'm going to say misprioritized issues. And then I'll just quickly run through this so it can be a bit more interactive. I just want to make sure I got my initial issues up, and then if anyone wants to add any more, they can. So we've done vision, people, data, issues, process. I'm going to write no processes documented. So when we're issue solving and something isn't working in the business and we're not on pace for a target, it's quite difficult to agree what the underlying root cause is if it's procedural, if there's no common understanding of how the thing was supposed to work to begin with, if that makes sense, right? So that's another common issue that we see standing between teams and their targets. And then finally, before I open it to the floor, the 8th issue that we see is on the traction side of the business. We've got 90-day rocks typically, and then we run these weekly meetings that we call a level 10 meeting in the EOS world. And again, I'm not going into what that is because I know some of you already had that primer, although I'm happy to if there's anyone on the call that feels like it will add value to this session. I'm going to describe this issue as mutant level 10 meetings. And so what I mean by that is when you do a weekly level 10 meeting, ideally, if you follow the prescriptive agenda, every week you look at your scorecard and every member of the team has a measurable that they're responsible for, and they say on track or off track for that number. And then you go through the rocks and they say on track and off track. You don't have any commentary. We used to call it story time with Rob in my business. So like I'd miss my sales numbers because I was in the kind of visionary integrator and sales seat. And rather than just saying off track and then deciding if we were going to solve it when we came to the issue solving part of the agenda, I would want to tell everybody why I was about to save the business with this hero deal next week, right? And then just hijack the agenda. And you'll see that a lot. And again, that's a common way of accidentally going off track with our issue solving. So those are 8 common issues that stand in between teams and hitting their targets that sort of just run around the wheel. Is there anything that anyone wants to call out as a particular issue that either they've experienced or they suspect others on the call might, that we can get up on the board before we start kind of IDSing as a group? Bridget?
I can say this because I read the book and it's a really good book. I enjoyed it, but it's not targeted at software companies. So it assumes a very traditional sales and marketing, bums on seats, everybody in an office kind of thing. So as a software company business owner, I sort of had to, in my own mind, adapt it slightly. And we're also a remote company, so it's not like we can get everybody into an office every week for a level 10. So there was that, which is just essentially slightly changed circumstances of what software companies do. But secondly, it's the unknown unknowns inside software. So things like penetration tests reveal a really significant thing that you didn't realize, or technical debt. So one of the significant things we've done where we've been off track, it's usually down to the fact that we thought it was going to be easier to do the software change than it turned out to be. So it takes longer. And these aren't kind of things that you can then kind of just do better next time, because next time the unknown unknowns will continue to hit. And I don't know if that's unusual in software in other businesses, but I think it's perfectly normal inside software companies.
Yeah, really good. Okay, so I've got technical debt, unknown unknowns. Any other issues that anyone wants to volunteer? We've got 11 now. No? Happy? All right. Awesome.
What about
Yeah.
positioning / competition?
Yeah, I'm just going to put that up there, and Michael, we might come back to that and ask you to kind of unpack that. So, positioning. Love it. Anyone else that want to get anything else up on the board that we can solve as a group?
No, these are awesome.
Yeah, fab. Okay. I'm really sorry for my writing on this side of the board. I should have set my camera up the other way so I wasn't writing like a left-handed. Can you make these out enough to be able to see what the words are roughly next to the numbers so we can call out the issues? Yeah? Yep. Right, where do you want to start? A quick refresher on does everyone know what IDS is? It's a problem-solving, issue-solving track that companies running on EOS use mostly in their weekly meetings. It stands for, IDS stands for identify the true root cause of an issue, discuss as a team to converge around a common understanding of what the true root cause is, not necessarily the presented symptom, and then move to a solution. And the solution in EOS typically means if it's in a level 10 meeting, we take a 1 week to do. So the person that took the responsibility, usually by reference to their role in the accountability chart, goes away and gets shit done, comes back, and hopefully the issue is either ameliorated or gone away next week. Or if it's an issue that we solve in a quarterly, it might get assigned to a 90-day rock. So that's the solve. Identify the root cause by discussing it and then assigning a solve, which is a 90-day rock or a 7-day to do, typically. Yeah? Cool. Okay, where do people want to start? Like what issue is speaking to you the most as the most likely barrier to the average SFM member hitting sensible targets? Or hitting targets, forget sensible. I know some of you are super growers. Just call out a number. Actually, we want 3. In EOS, we solve issues in batches of 3s. Doesn't matter who. We're going to get to all of them, hopefully. We've got 25 minutes, and we're going to get there quick.
Let's say number 3.
Number 3, okay. So number 3 first. Yeah, 1. What's the next one? We need a batch of 3. It doesn't matter if it's right or wrong.
Unknown unknowns.
Unknown. Love it. Okay, so 2. Last one.
And let's go positioning competition.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so we start with not enough people. What's the, I don't know who's, Bridget, was that your issue? Not enough people?
So it's kind of like people, basically. Your plan is only as good as your ability to have people to help execute it. So I'm just hypothesizing here that if you're thinking about bringing on EOS and planning and doing better, it's because you've got some problem to solve. And if you have a problem to solve, it's not like you've probably got a perfect team, because if you had a perfect team, then why would you have a problem, if that makes sense? So the two probably go hand in hand, and getting those people in the right people in the right seats, that in itself is actually really hard. So as I said, we're in our 7th quarter of planning, but the first couple of quarters we weren't properly doing all of the stuff in the rubricon of the book. We weren't at all the rubric of the book. We were just basically we were pretending to do EOS because we just had to kind of make everybody feel safe about it. So the biggest challenge I've had about EOS is setting the target and enforcing the targets through the process, because essentially you constantly forgive everybody for not really meeting the targets because you just think, well, we've had a lot of other problems.
That's interesting. Okay, so the underlying root cause for yours. So we've actually got not enough people here, which has seemed to me to be kind of feature of the ambition of the target, but you also had wrong people there.
Yes.
So what's the underlying root cause of that? Like, or what's the real underlying root? Like, did you find you've had to move some people out now using the tools a bit more rigorously?
No, I mean, I don't want to dominate this whole session. I mean, I don't think it's it's not news to anybody here on the call that you end up hiring the wrong people, or the people don't want to do the thing that you want them to do, or you need to pivot or change, or people hire other people that you didn't hire and they're not so good. I mean, it's like people problems are people problems.
That's all good. You're not dominating the call, but what's the solve, Bridget? What have you done or are you doing to make that issue go away?
Oh, so quite a few people left last year. So
Yes.
they either leave, or you fire them, or you ease them out. So the last kind of problem person in our team left essentially about 3 months ago,
You
and
legend.
everybody breathed a sigh of relief. So you've got this moment where your team is happy, it's a happy team, and then they can plan away, and they're really happy.
All right, are we solved?
So for me, but I think it's one of those things that continues to recur.
No, listen, like EOS is simple, but it's not easy, right? The reason we're doing this, and forgive me if anyone thinks this is really dumb, but Bridget, my guess is there'll be someone on the call that needs to find the resolve to get rid of a wrong person. Like, that's not an intellectual problem. That's find the reserves to do it, which is why being a part of this community is valuable. Like, I leaned on the tools to give me the confidence to do something that felt deeply unpleasant and unnatural to me. So I'm like, does anyone else want to go further into that, or was Bridget solve clear to you? Right? Like, if you're not hitting your targets because the people you're relying on to do their bit of performing it, as the leader of the organization, they've got to go. Yeah. So we solved.
Yes. What if? Can we dive into that? What if one of those people is a co-founder with a lot of dependencies? That's my situation.
Okay.
He's not here right now, but that's
Look, with 100% transparency, I can actually answer that my co-founder was one of my people problem people, but he's also my husband. He was my CTO, and one of the issues a couple of years ago, literally, Keith does not work for You Can Book Me anymore. And he's very happy about that. But it is quite possible to have a co-founder who is the wrong person, in the wrong seat. And that was because Keith is an engineer, does not want to interact with a team of developers. We couldn't scale, we couldn't hire people because our CTO basically was the wrong person in the wrong seat. And so we had to turn things around to move him off. Now he's continued to be my husband and a co-founder, but he doesn't work inside You Can Book Me anymore. And I think that's your point about the business having its own set of interests outside of the founders. If the business doesn't require Keith's skills, he had to go.
Yeah, and Art, my co-founder is still one of my best friends, but he's a terrible manager and hated managing. So being in the leadership team on the accountability chart, responsible for all things product and technology, is a serious impediment to us hitting our product objectives. So are you solved on that, Art, or do you want to get deeper into it? Because it's all good. It's your
yeah.
Well, that's really interesting to hear about that, Bridget, that scenario. Yeah. So in my case, without going too much into it, I think this individual is really good at either technical or either business operations, but not both. Right now, it's kind of splitting time between both, and we've lost two really key people this year, personality conflicts, because they just can't work with him. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. And I know you've lost people, Bridget, it sounds like, but that's part of the challenge right now, is just trying to figure out how to, and being bootstrapped, we don't have a bunch of money to go find like top tier talent. We did manage to hire one senior backend engineer who's taking a lot of his, helping him a lot with his kind of the backend technical stuff, but we're not enough revenue to just hire like top tier talent. And so we're just kind of muddling along on it. And what it's costing us is it's cost us years of off our timeline. We're stuck at 2.5 million ARR. We should be at 5 by now, but we're still here. So I'm just trying to think of how you might deal with that. But it's interesting to hear your scenario, Bridget.
Well, look, I can certainly take this conversation offline to a different time, Art, and I can just talk to you exactly how I dealt with it.
That'd be great. Yeah. I met you once in Dublin, and so we should chat.
I remember at dinner.
Guys, this is what IDSing should feel like, right? Like right to the heart of the issue. Fuck me, this is hard. I don't know how to solve this, and we inhabit this space, as uncomfortable as it is, until we take a 1 week to do or a 90-day rock that moves the ball forward. If we need to recap the company, reissue options to equitize the remaining founders, to offset the dilution that we've just suffered in the departing co-founder, whatever it is we need to do, like, it's a Rubik's Cube often, and you're going to need to move the things around, and it's going to look like you're going backwards to go forward. And so all you're doing is relying on those weekly and quarterly rhythms to be able to unpack. Like, it doesn't mean the issues get any easier to solve. Like, emotionally, it just becomes clearer what you need to do and in what order. And if you've set a target that requires a team firing in all cylinders and you don't have one, then we've possibly set a silly target for our organizational resources, and we actually need to go backwards before we can go forward. Right.
Just a quick one. I think Igor had something to share.
Well, yeah, go on.
Yeah, just a quick question here about EOS and people management. I mean, what does the EOS specifically do about that topic? I understand the part of setting goals, vision and goals and targets, and then you have these meetings and then you keep them accountable. I mean, is that as far as it goes, or there is anything there in that book or whatever I was saying about motivating people and getting performance out of the people? Does it touch on the performance side, or it just stops at a goal setting, doesn't hit a goal, then is HR on fire?
It does. It's beyond the scope of this call. I'm happy to talk to you about it offline if it's helpful. But effectively, on your accountability chart, you have to determine every single employee in your organization. Do they meet your expectations culturally? Do they live the values? And then do they GWC, get, want, and have the capacity to perform in the role that you've assigned to them? And every 90 days, you should be doing that analysis to see where you've got specific people issues. How you actually go about having the coaching conversations, EOS hints at, but you would typically refer to sort of people management for that. All right, so 2 unknown unknowns. Remember, this isn't, the context for this call is unknown unknowns standing between us and delivering our 90-day objectives, our 1-year goals. So does anyone have any thoughts on what the underlying root cause is of us keep getting blindsided by shit that is now causing us to end up with a cash flow problem or disappointed investors or whatever? Like, there's loads of wisdom on this call. We need to try and be fairly brisk, because I would love you to get through at least 2 rounds of IDSing. So what's the most pointed observation you can make about why it is those of you that are suffering unknown unknowns are experiencing that? Do you have any thoughts? I mean, I can share if you don't, but I would love to hear from the group. I'll go on. Yeah, Michael?
I don't know, but maybe you simply forgot to fill a position in your what's the word, in your
accountability
in
chart.
your yeah, exactly. Yeah, sorry, maybe you just forgot about something. You didn't need a finance guy for the first few years, and suddenly you realize, oh, I should have.
So okay, so that's interesting. So you think it's that, like, somebody that has more relevant experience is less likely to be surprised?
Yeah, yeah. So it maybe it's connected to the not enough or wrong people problem, or spreading. I mean, I was also wanted to mention it before. For me, the wrong people or not enough people, very often as a bootstrapper is just another word of saying spreading the founder too thin problem, and that leads, from my experience, to being blindsided and discovering, oh, I should have. So why didn't I?
I love that. Thank you so much. There's 2 for me. So there's one that you've just said, and the other one for me is confusing R&D mode with production mode. So where my life got better when I started asking our technical colleagues to distinguish for me when they're in R&D mode, figuring things out, versus when they're in execution mode. And the number of unknown unknowns dropped precipitously when we were in production mode. The mistake I made as the founder previously, trying to live up to my investor expectations, was I knowingly or unknowingly put pressure on my various teams to delude themselves and me that we were production ready in areas where we were really at R&D. And when you try and race a car that's in prototype, the wheels come off. Right? But there's so much emotional pressure on you to tell yourself that you're production ready that bad things happen. So for me, Michael, I think yours is the primary one, experience, because experienced people tend not to make silly commitments to founders. Inexperienced people tend to dive on the grenade and then get blown up. Simon.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the unknowns often come for me when I don't spend enough time planning, or when I don't sit down and think carefully enough.
Yeah.
And that's because I'm spreading myself too thin and trying to do too many things. That probably comes up a lot for me.
Yeah, so that's a combination of our points about R&D mode, and then like
should have known unknowns, basically.
Yeah, should have known knowns. Are we solved? Yeah, see a few nods. Okay, number 3, positioning and competition. I can't remember who teed that up. Who wants to have a run at the context for that? Was that Eustace?
That was Michael.
Michael. Go on. The floor is yours. What's your thought of the underlying root cause? What's the real underlying issue of competition taking of the proposition not quite working?
If I knew, I wouldn't have the issue, I guess. I mean, there might be so many reasons, especially I'm speaking from my situation. It's mostly coming from a background of being in the business with a certain product for quite a long time, let's say 10 years. And again, maybe the simplest answer is to just at one point you miss a trend, or you miss a new competitor coming up, and you miss a shift in the marketplace, or you simply have to rebalance your own position because there's new people coming into exactly your niche. So I would say one of the underlying issues is either missing things or being not flexible enough and fast enough to adapt to new situations. Yeah.
And for me, one of the things I see a lot is when founders are spread too thin, they lose the ability to like daydream and spend time with customers and do that like horizon gazing that you almost feel.
I'm not daydreaming, not at all.
Yeah, right. You feel guilty about doing that, right? But like in EOS, we have this role visionary.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I repeat myself. You already see a pattern here. I have a feeling this spreading too thin is a root issue of many other issues, for me at least. But exactly, you don't have someone who has their tabs on your big 5 competitors' pricing page, for example, and then suddenly you see like, fuck, they copied our pricing model again, and I didn't know for 2 months, or things like that, right? Or I don't have the right tools to track this automatically. So it could also be like in these days should be also possible to fix this, maybe not with human resources, but maybe with tools. This particular example.
And in addition to that, I really like this book. I don't know if you guys know April Dunford, the obviously awesome positioning.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah,
it's nice. So like I find that when you've got a founder that's got enough headspace to be looking at the market and hanging out with customers and spotting emerging trends, and then I can see, Art's got it as well. And then taking like, we call it a clarity break, like, and just going and redoing the positioning exercise and asking yourself what's changed in the market and where am I falling out of market fit for what I think is going to happen in the next 6 months. Then you can get that shit up on your issues list preemptively and do what we're doing now, but do this with your leadership team and solve the issue before it actually becomes something that stands between you and the target. Are you solved?
Yeah, well, it's a start.
Sweet. All right, we got 9 more minutes. I reckon we can get through 3 more issues. Where do you want to go?
I would suggest silly.
So I have a question.
All right.
I would go with silly targets. Yeah.
Sorry, where's that?
So my question is, what do we mean when we say, are we solved? I don't feel that these things are being solved as we speak about them, that it feels quite surfacey, what we're doing in some way.
Okay, so it's a really good question. Thank you. So what I'm assuming is that if you're in the process of going on to EOS or some other operating system, you're not going to come off this call and then fail to rigorously issue solve in your business with your teams, having the hardest conversations that you're currently scared to have week to week, quarter to quarter. That's what solve means. Like, because at the moment, what I'm observing is most of you know what you need to do. It's just hard to do it.
And also find the resources, the time, the priority, etc. Yeah.
Which is why we batch them in 3s and we say, what's our most pressing issue right now? What do we need to do to solve it? And then, like I said to you, Oren, all I do is teach an operating system. You're all more successful than me. you're still in the big seats doing the hard jobs, which is actioning the issues as you work through them. The critical ingredient of setting targets and then hitting them is it all comes back to those 6 components and the issues. Like the only one that if you've set targets that are physically impossible, that still is just an issue. But unfortunately, the solve is going to be redo your business plan, reset your investor expectations, and set a new targets that are physically possible. After that, everything gets solved through the weekly rhythm with your leadership team and IDSing.
Gotcha. Thank you.
My pleasure. Right, go on. At least we've got time for 2 more issues, but call out 3. Someone spoke.
I think Eustace, you had something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say like silly targets.
Okay, awesome.
I mean, that's the number 1, so let's go with that one.
Yeah. Anyone else? Anything else? Give me 2 more. We might not get to them.
Maybe one related to the people issue. There are certain domains in which I'm very sure that I'm not the domain expert, but in other domains, I feel quite comfortable. And if I assign that domain to someone new, and it's sometimes hard not to intervene on some very specific points if it's clear that they are not really a domain expert, but you do delegate that work to someone, and that's sometimes an issue to really delegate that better and find a way to have better KPIs, etc., and limit the interventions over time.
All right, Fab. All right, we'll try and get to that. And then last one. Call out a number.
Number 8.
You never 10 meetings. All right, cool. This is gonna feel, Oren, this is gonna feel really unsatisfying if the rest of the call has, because we're gonna be super. But you should hopefully take this into your meeting. So silly 1-year goals. Do any of you have any reason why you have to set your 1-year goals where they are, and why you couldn't have an ambitious 3-year and a deliverable 1-year? Like some of you will have investor pressure where or cash flow deficits where it almost forces fantasy thinking on you. But quite a lot of us are just hard charging entrepreneurs, and we just can't resist setting targets that we don't know how to hit at the beginning of the year. Is that fair? Like how many of you, for who is the underlying cause your own like aggressive, hard charging driven entrepreneurial spirit? And 3 years just.
I think on this one, so I think for example, I think what you're explaining here. So I think I had that some time ago, but I think we overcome that. I think currently now with what I would say with with silly targets or something. So what we unpacked recently with leadership, we kind of get into the target setting. We all feel quite good on them. So it's not like, we just go with the dreamy things, and then it just falls flat nearly next week, right? So we hit the reality. So somehow removing that idea of, when you're in planning mode, it's like everything feels doable, and then when you really, come into work, it just feels like, fuck, I just been in a kind of inspirational meeting, right? So I mean, I don't know if it makes sense what I'm saying.
Yeah, it does. What's the underlying root cause of that for you? Like how and what's the solve?
I'm trying still to unpack. I think for me, I still think we just need to be more trying to understand during the session how we're going to get that, but I still believe that we do that, but it's still, I don't know where it still falls flat, and I don't know how others happen to plan things, right? But for us recently, this is the case, right? So either we plan some random stuff what actually doesn't help anything, and then we just kind of have inspirational I don't know, some kind of things what we do, but they're not very much actually important eventually.
Yeah, okay. So like it's this confusion between R&D and production mode in a way, like maybe, not really knowing how to deliver the plan when you set it.
Yeah, maybe I think that's also, I think, what you're just saying. And I'm not saying that we're not delivering the target, but it doesn't feel like what we plan is the things what we drive the targets. And actually it feels like, what we actually do not plan is actually driving things, and what we plan is actually disturbing the thing. So you get the point, right? So it kind of creates the disturbance during the leadership sessions rather than actual focus.
Totally. My recommendation is you start setting 1-year goals that are real, like don't effing miss this goal, and then reward stretch performance, right? Like what so many of us do is we set stretch goals as the goals, and then we destroy the culture of accountability and discipline because we don't 100% know exactly how we're going to hit it. So just because you've set an achievable, almost conservative goal doesn't mean you can't then stretch past it. The problem is when your mandatory goal is secretly a stretch goal and you're not really sure how to get there. Do you want to do a wrap up now, Joby? All I wanted to illustrate to the gang was no matter how big your issues list is, they're just
that's valuable. Yeah.
They're just issues, right? And as long as you're being open and honest with your leadership team, working out which of the 6 components is the underlying true root cause, give someone the task to move the ball forward that week or that quarter. And as long as you don't run out of money, nothing's beyond you, you'll solve it.
Perfect. I think we could have gone another 30 minutes, to be honest with you. But I know how hard it is to get that 60 minutes out of your calendar. So Rob, thank you so much. Everyone can connect with Rob. I'm sure he'll be happy. He'll also be in Dublin with us, having dinner with us. So if you have any other questions, he will be there. But aside from that, thank you so much all for joining. Really appreciate it. And any feedback you have for Rob, my link is in the chat. But aside from that, we're back again next week for another workshop. I think this was requested. It's like going from founder sales to sales led. So please attend that. But aside from that, again, Rob, thank you so much. I thought that was really good. A few laughs in there. Good to know that we are still very open as a community to talk about our issues and helping each other. So looking forward to seeing you all together with Rob in the next 3 weeks. But until then, have a good night and we shall see you soon.
Yeah, well done, guys. I think you're brilliant. I love your businesses. I'm excited to see you next week or next month. Sorry. See you later.
Yeah,
thanks, see you later. Guys.
Thanks a million.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the SaaS Revolution Show. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you learned something from it, check out SaaStock.com/events to find all the upcoming SaaStock conferences around the world.
Want exclusive SaaS content and actionable insights to grow your SaaS? Join our community of over 36,000 SaaS founders at SaaStock.com.